Captain Jake Morrison floated in the command chair of the USS Meridian, watching stars drift past the main screen. His crew had been mapping empty space for 3 months now. It was boring work, but someone had to chart the unknown sectors beyond. Human space. "Captain, I'm getting something strange on sensors," called Dr. Lisa Kim from her science station. She was young but smart, fresh out of the academy with degrees in physics and alien technology. Jake pushed himself over to her station. The gravity was turned down to save power during long missions. "What kind of strange?" Lisa pointed at her screen. "Energy readings that don't match anything natural. They're massive, but they shouldn't be there. This sector was supposed to be empty." Jake studied the readings. His experience told him this meant trouble. In 20 years of deep space service, strange energy readings usually meant bad news. How far away? About 6 light hours. We could reach them in 12 hours if we pushed the engines. Jake thought for a moment. Their mission was to explore and report back. If something big was out there, Earth needed to know about it. "Set course, but keep us in stealth mode. I don't want anyone knowing we're coming." The Meridian changed direction and started moving toward the energy source. Jake called his senior staff to the briefing room. Besides Lisa, there was Lieutenant Ben Carter, their communications officer, and Chief Engineer Sam Rodriguez. "We're investigating unknown energy readings," Jake told them. "Could be nothing, but I want everyone ready for anything. Ben, make sure our communication array is working. If we find something important, Earth needs to know fast." Ben nodded. He was reliable, the kind of officer who never panicked under pressure. "All systems ready, Captain. We can send a message burst back to Earth in seconds if needed." As the hours passed, the energy readings grew stronger. Lisa worked at her station, trying to figure out what they were approaching. Her face grew more worried as the data came in. "Captain, these readings are off the charts. Whatever's out there, it's huge. And there are multiple sources, maybe hundreds." Jake felt ice in his stomach. Hundreds of massive energy sources in empty space meant only one thing: battle stations, silent running. The Meridian went dark except for essential systems. They drifted forward on minimal power, like a ghost ship. When they were close enough, Jake ordered the main screen to show what lay ahead. What they saw made everyone go quiet. Ships, thousands of them. The smallest ones were twice the size of Earth's biggest battleships. The largest were like floating cities, covered in weapons and armor. They hung in space in perfect formation, waiting. "My God," whispered Lisa. "It's an invasion fleet." The ships were not human. Their design was angular and aggressive, built for war. Strange markings covered their hulls, and weapon ports dotted every surface. These were ships made by a species that lived for conquest. Jake stared at the fleet in shock. Earth had always wondered if they were alone in the universe. Now they had their answer, and it was terrifying. "Can you identify the ship types?" Lisa worked frantically at her station. "I'm picking up communication signals. The computer is trying to translate them." She paused, reading her screen. "Captain, I think I've got something. These are Vorthic ships." "Vorthic?" "It's mentioned in some of the old exploration reports. A militaristic species that conquers other worlds. They've been expanding across this part of the galaxy for centuries." Jake absorbed this information. An alien empire with thousands of warships sitting on the edge of human space. It could only mean one thing. They're planning to invade Earth. As if to confirm his fears, the computer finished translating some of the alien communications. Lisa's face went pale as she read the results. "Captain, they're talking about Earth. They call it the third planet of the yellow star. They've been watching us for months. They know about our cities, our military, everything. Jake listened to more of the translated conversations. The aliens spoke about humans like they were insects. They discussed dividing Earth's resources and how many humans to keep as slaves. They laughed about how easy the conquest would be. One voice stood out among the others. It was deeper, more commanding. The computer identified it as Admiral Zeke Tar, the fleet commander. He was giving orders to his captains. The human species shows no advanced technology, the alien admiral was saying. Their weapons are primitive. Their ships are slow and weak. We will arrive at their homeworld in 3 weeks. I expect total surrender within 2 days. Jake felt anger building inside him. These aliens had no idea what humans were capable of when their backs were against the wall. But looking at the massive fleet, he also felt fear. Earth's entire navy would be like gnats against this armada. "Captain," Ben said quietly, "what do we do?" Jake stared at the alien fleet, thinking hard. The Meridian was just one small ship against thousands of enemies. They could try to fight, but it would be suicide. They would be destroyed without even scratching the enemy's paint. But Earth needed to know about this threat. Someone had to warn them. "Ben, prepare a data burst. Everything we've recorded about this fleet. Send it back to Earth immediately." "What about us, sir?" Jake looked at his crew. They were good people, loyal and brave. He was about to ask them to risk their lives. "We stay here and keep watching. Earth needs intelligence about enemy movements and capabilities. If this fleet moves toward Earth before our message arrives, we'll have to try to delay them somehow." Lisa looked up from her station. "Sir, that would be suicide. Our ship can't fight even one of those vessels." "I know," Jake said quietly, "but Earth is our home. Our families are there. If we can buy them even a few extra hours to prepare, we have to try." The crew was quiet for a moment. Then Ben spoke up. "I volunteered to take the data back to Earth in a shuttle. The Meridian should stay here and keep gathering intelligence." Jake nodded. It was a good plan. "Prepare for launch. Take everything we've learned and get it to Earth as fast as possible. Tell them what's coming." As Ben prepared to leave, the crew watched the alien fleet continue its preparations. Ships moved in formation, practicing attack runs. Massive supply. Vessels delivered weapons and fuel. It was clear these aliens were professional soldiers who had done this many times before. Jake had a feeling they had never faced an enemy like humanity. Humans might not have the best technology or the biggest guns, but they had something these aliens had never encountered. They never gave up. The shuttle launched from the Meridian, carrying humanity's first warning about the approaching storm. Jake watched it disappear into hyperspace, carrying the message that would change everything. Now all they could do was wait and watch, gathering what intelligence they could about humanity's first alien enemy. The invasion was coming, and Earth needed every advantage they could get. Lieutenant Ben Carter's shuttle dropped out of hyperspace near Earth, with alarms screaming. His ship was damaged from pushing the engines too hard, but he had made it. The message he carried would change everything. Within minutes, military ships surrounded his shuttle. Ben transmitted his emergency codes and was escorted to the largest space station orbiting Earth. As soon as he docked, soldiers rushed him to a secure briefing room. General Frank Davis was waiting for him. The old soldier had gray hair and tired eyes, but his voice was strong. "Son, you better have a good reason for burning out a perfectly good shuttle and screaming about alien invasions." Ben placed a data crystal on the table. "Sir, this contains everything Captain Morrison's team recorded. We found a Vorthic invasion fleet. Thousands of ships. They're coming for Earth." The general's expression changed from skeptical to deadly serious as he reviewed the data. Within an hour, President Helen Martinez was in the briefing room, along with the heads of every military branch and intelligence agency. Dr. Amy Rodriguez arrived from the university where she studied alien life. She was Earth's leading expert on xenobiology, though until today it had been mostly theoretical work. Now she found herself staring at real alien communications and ship designs. "How long do we have?" President Martinez asked. 3 weeks, maybe less," Ben replied. The alien admiral was talking about arriving in 3 weeks and expecting surrender in 2 days. Admiral Susan Blake, head of the Navy, laughed bitterly. 2 days? These aliens don't know humans very well. That might be our only advantage. Dr. Rodriguez said, studying the alien communications. Their previous conquests all surrendered quickly when faced with overwhelming force. They expect rational behavior, General Davis nodded. Rational would be surrendering to save lives. But humans don't always do the rational thing. President Martinez stood up. "General, begin implementing all defense protocols." "Admiral Blake, I want every ship we have ready for combat." "Dr. Rodriguez, learn everything you can about these Vorthik. How they think, how they fight, what they expect from us." The next few hours were chaos. Military bases around the world went to maximum alert. Ships that were in dock for repairs or rushed back into service. Weapons that existed only on paper were suddenly given unlimited funding and rushed into production. Captain Tony Phillips got the call while training new Marines at Camp Pendleton. He was told to report to Washington immediately for a classified briefing. When he learned about the alien invasion, he wasn't surprised that Earth was being threatened. He was surprised it had taken this long. "Sir, what are my orders?" he asked. "General Davis, start training civilians in guerrilla warfare. If these aliens land on Earth, we're going to make them regret it. Every city, every town, every farm needs to be ready to fight." Tony nodded. He had fought in every major conflict of the last 20 years. He knew how to make an enemy's life miserable, even with inferior weapons. "I'll need access to every military base in the country, and permission to train anyone who volunteers. You have it, whatever you need." Meanwhile, Dr. Rodriguez worked with a team of linguists and psychologists to understand the Vorthik mindset. What they learned was both encouraging and terrifying. "They're completely unprepared for stubborn resistance," she told the president during a video conference. "Every species they've conquered followed the same pattern. Show of force, demand. For surrender, quick capitulation. They've never faced an enemy that refuses to give up. What happens when they do? We don't know. There's no precedent in their communications, but I think it might confuse them. Maybe even make them make mistakes." Admiral Blake was working 18-hour days, coordinating Earth's defenses. She knew they were outgunned by thousands to one, but she also knew that humans had won impossible battles before. The key was to make the enemy pay for every victory. "We can't beat them in a straight fight," she told her staff. "So we don't fight fair. We hit and run. We make them chase us. We cost them more than they expected to pay." She began implementing Protocol Defiance, a plan that had existed only in theory until now. Every military asset would be used, from nuclear submarines to civilian spacecraft, converted into missile platforms. The plan was simple: make the invasion as expensive as possible. News of the alien threat couldn't be kept secret for long. Within days, every government on Earth knew what was coming. Instead of panic, something unexpected happened. Old enemies started working together. Countries that had been at war for decades suddenly shared technology and resources. The European Union opened its weapons factories to American designs. China provided rare earth metals for new weapon systems. Russia shared its most advanced missile technology. Captain Linda Hayes was called back from leave to lead a new fighter squadron. She found herself training with pilots from 12 different countries. flying experimental fighters that used combined human technology. I never thought I'd see the day when everyone on Earth was on the same side, she told her wingman during a training flight. It took aliens threatening to enslave us all, he replied. But better late than never. Back in space, Morrison's team continued their surveillance. They watched the Vorthic fleet practice attack formations and studied their communication patterns. What they learned was sent back to Earth in encrypted bursts. The aliens were confident, almost arrogant. They discussed human resistance like it would be a minor inconvenience. Some officers complained about having to leave ships behind to garrison a conquered Earth, calling it boring duty. They think we're going to roll over and play dead, Morrison told his remaining crew. They have no idea what's coming. Meanwhile, on Earth, President Martinez addressed the United Nations. Representatives from every country sat in the assembly hall, listening as she spoke about humanity's first contact with alien life. We face an enemy with superior technology and numbers, she said. But we have something they don't understand. We have the will to fight for our home, no matter the odds. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will show these Vorthic what humans do when their backs are against the wall. The speech was broadcast worldwide. Instead of causing panic, it strengthened resolve. Recruitment offices were flooded with volunteers. Factories began working around the clock to produce weapons and supplies. Dr. Rodriguez made another important discovery while studying Vorthic psychology. Their entire military structure is based on quick victories, she reported. Long campaigns damage their morale and strain their resources. If we can drag this out, make them fight for every mile, we might have a chance. General Davis nodded. Then that's what we'll do. We'll make this the longest, bloodiest, most expensive conquest in their history. As the weeks passed, Earth transformed into a fortress. Every major city had defense installations. Military units trained with civilians, teaching them how to fight in the ruins of their own neighborhoods. Weapons caches were hidden in schools and hospitals. Admiral Blake coordinated with every navy on Earth to create a unified defense fleet. It was still tiny compared to the Vorthic Armada, but it was crewed by humans who were fighting for their families and their world. The final week before the expected invasion was tense. Ben Carter had been promoted and was now coordinating intelligence between Earth and Morrison's surveillance team. The reports were grim but consistent. The Vorthic were coming, and they expected an easy victory. Let them think that, President, Martinez said during a final security briefing. When they get here, we'll show them what humans really are. Captain Phillips finished his training programs with a simple message to all the civilian volunteers. When the aliens land, don't try to be heroes, just be human. Fight for your families, your neighbors, your home. That's all we need. As Earth waited for the arrival of the Vorthic fleet, one thing was clear. The aliens were about to learn that conquering humanity would be nothing like their previous victories. They expected a quick surrender from a rational species. Instead, they were about to encounter something their empire had never faced, a species that got more dangerous the more desperate they became. The Vorthic fleet arrived at the edge of Earth's solar system like a dark cloud blotting out the stars. Thousands of alien warships dropped out of hyperspace in perfect formation, their weapons already charged and ready for conquest. Admiral Zeke Tar stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Dominator. He was tall even for a Vorthic, with gray skin and yellow eyes that had watched dozens of worlds surrender without a fight. This would be conquest number 43 for his fleet. Scan the system, he ordered his tactical officer. Show me their pathetic defenses. The results appeared on the main screen. A few dozen ships scattered around the third planet, some orbital stations, and what looked like missile platforms on the planet's surface. Zektar almost laughed. He had conquered species with 10 times more firepower. Open a communication channel. To the planet, he commanded. Let's get this over with quickly. On Earth, every military leader watched their screens as the alien fleet appeared. The sheer size of it was overwhelming. Admiral Blake felt her heart sink as she counted ship after ship materializing in space. "My God," whispered General Davis. "There are so many of them." President Martinez stood in the war room, surrounded by her advisors. She looked at the massive alien fleet and felt fear, but also something else. Anger. These aliens had come to her world, threatening her people, expecting them to bow down like cowards. The communication request came through on all frequencies. The translation computers worked quickly, and soon an alien voice filled the war room. It spoke in heavily accented English, clearly translated. By their own systems, primitive humans of the third planet. "I am Admiral Zektar of the Vorthic Empire. Your world is now claimed by the Empire. You will surrender immediately and prepare for occupation. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities and the enslavement of your population." The war room was silent. Every eye turned to President Martinez. This was the moment that would define humanity's future. Surrender and live as slaves, or fight and probably die free. Martinez walked to the communication console. She thought about her children, about every human child who deserved to grow up free. She thought about every generation that had fought for freedom, from ancient warriors to modern soldiers. She pressed the transmit button. No. The word was simple, clear, and absolute. No negotiation, no pleading, no fear. Just a flat refusal. That echoed through space to the alien fleet. On the Dominator, Zektar stared at his communication officer in confusion. What did they say? They said, "No, sir." "No what? No surrender? Are they asking for terms?" The officer checked his instruments. "Sir, I believe they are simply refusing to surrender." Zektar had conquered 42 worlds, but he had never received such a response. Species either surrendered immediately or asked for terms. They never. Just said no and left it at that. "Clarify their response," he ordered. Back on Earth, Admiral Blake smiled grimly as she took the communication. "Admiral Zektar, this is Admiral Susan Blake of the Earth Defense Force. Our response is simple. We don't care how many ships you have. We don't care how advanced your weapons are. This is our home, and you are not welcome here. Leave now, or we will make you regret coming." The silence from the alien fleet stretched for long minutes. Finally, Zektar's voice returned, tinged with confusion and growing anger. "You cannot be serious. We have thousands of ships. You have dozens. Surrender now, and some of your population will be spared." President Martinez took the transmitter again. Her voice was steady and cold. "Let me be perfectly clear, Admiral. We will not surrender. We will not submit. We will not bow down to you or any other invader. If you want our world, come and take it. But know that every inch will cost you blood." The transmission ended. The alien fleet hung in space, its commanders, trying to understand what had just happened. No species in their experience had ever refused surrender when faced with such overwhelming odds. Dr. Rodriguez monitored alien communications from her position in the Pentagon. The translation computers were picking up confused chatter between Vorthic ships. Their officers were asking their superiors for guidance on how to handle such an unprecedented response. "They're actually confused," she reported to President Martinez. "Their entire doctrine is based on quick surrender after a show of force. They don't have procedures for this situation." "Good," Martinez replied. "Let's keep them confused." Admiral Zektar conferred with his senior officers. They had studied dozens of species before conquest, but humans were proving to be an anomaly. Their psychology didn't match any known pattern. Perhaps they are bluffing, suggested his tactical officer, trying to appear strong to negotiate better terms. Or perhaps they are simply insane, added another officer. No rational species would challenge such odds. Zektar decided to demonstrate Vorthic power. He ordered a surgical strike on a military installation to show humans what resistance would cost them. 3 destroyers moved toward Earth's orbital defenses. "Destroy that weapons platform," he commanded. "Show them we are serious." The Vorthic ships opened fire, their energy weapons tearing through Earth's outermost defense station in seconds. The installation exploded in a brilliant flash, visible from the planet's surface. On Earth, every military leader watched the destruction with grim determination. They had expected this. The aliens were trying to frighten them into surrender. Instead, the attack had the opposite effect. Admiral Blake activated every defense treaty on Earth. All units the enemy has fired on human targets. Operation Defiance is now active. Engage at will. What happened next shocked the Vorthic fleet. Instead of panic or surrender, Earth's defenses came alive with coordinated fury. Every orbital platform opened fire simultaneously. Surface-based railguns launched projectiles into space. Fighter squadrons poured out of hidden bases. Colonel Mike Torres commanded the main orbital defense platform. He watched the 3 Vorthic destroyers approaching and smiled coldly. "Let's show these aliens what humans do to uninvited guests," he said, and pressed the firing button. The railgun platform unleashed a barrage of hypersonic projectiles. The Vorthic shields held against the first few impacts, but the sustained bombardment began to overload their systems. 1 destroyers. Shields flickered and failed. Captain Linda Hayes led her fighter squadron in a desperate attack on the damaged Vorthic ship. Her fighters were tiny compared to the alien destroyer, but they moved fast and attacked from all angles. "Remember your training," she called to her pilots over the radio. "We might not be able to destroy them, but we can hurt them. Make every shot count." The fighters swarmed around the destroyer like angry hornets. Their weapons couldn't penetrate the thick armor, but they targeted sensor arrays and weapon mounts. Every hit degraded the alien ship's combat effectiveness. On the Dominator, Zektar watched in amazement as his destroyers came under sustained attack. The humans were actually fighting back, and fighting hard. One of his ships was taking significant damage. "Sir, the Ravager is requesting permission to withdraw for repairs," his communication officer reported. "Denied. 3 destroyers should be more than sufficient to handle these primitives." But the humans weren't fighting like primitives. They coordinated their attacks with military precision. When one defense platform was destroyed, others immediately filled the gap. When fighters were shot down, more appeared from hidden bases. The battle raged for hours. Finally, the 3 Vorthic destroyers managed to break through Earth's defenses, but at a cost. One ship was heavily damaged, another had lost half its weapons, and all 3 had taken casualties. For the first time in his career, Admiral Zektar had lost soldiers to a species that was supposed to surrender without a fight. The engagement, that should have lasted minutes, had taken hours and cost him valuable ships and crews. "Admiral," his tactical officer said quietly, "perhaps we underestimated these humans." Zektar stared at the planet below. The humans had lost the engagement, but they had fought with a ferocity that disturbed him. Every previous species had tried to minimize casualties by surrendering quickly. These humans seemed to view casualties as the price of resistance. On Earth, President Martinez addressed her military leaders. "They expected us to fold after one demonstration. Instead, we bloodied their nose. Now they know we're serious." Admiral Blake nodded. "The question is, what will they do next?" The answer came quickly. The Vorthic fleet began moving toward Earth, no longer expecting a quick surrender. They were preparing for a real fight, Dr. Rodriguez monitored the alien communications with growing excitement. They're changing their tactics, moving from conquest mode to siege mode. This is costing them time and resources they didn't plan to spend. Ben, we're already winning, Martinez said. Every hour we delay them is a victory. In space, Captain Morrison's surveillance team watched the Vorthik fleet advance. They're not happy, he reported to Earth. The easy conquest just became a real war, and they're not used to those. The stage was set for the real battle to begin. The aliens had learned that humans would not surrender easily. Now they were about to discover just how dangerous a species could be when fighting for their home. The Vorthik invasion began at dawn over major cities across Earth. Massive landing craft descended through the atmosphere like metal meteors, their shields glowing from atmospheric friction. Admiral Zektar had decided to establish control points in every major population center, expecting quick capitulation once humans saw alien soldiers in their streets. He could not have been more wrong. In New York City, Major Chris Anderson crouched in the subway tunnels beneath Manhattan with 200 soldiers from various countries. They had spent weeks preparing for this moment, turning the underground into a fortress. Remember the plan, he told his mixed unit of Americans, British, Germans, and Japanese. Let them land. Let them think they control the surface. Then we show them what urban warfare really means. Above ground, Vorthik dropships landed in Central Park and Times Square. Alien soldiers in powered armor emerged, weapons ready, expecting to face panicked civilians and scattered military resistance. Instead, they found empty streets. The civilians had been evacuated days ago, and the military had gone underground. The First Vorthik Patrol moved down Broadway, confident in their advanced armor and weapons. They never saw the sniper who took out their point man from a 10th-floor window. As they scrambled for cover, explosions erupted from manholes and storm drains. Major Anderson's teams had turned every intersection into a kill zone. When the aliens tried to advance, they faced crossfire from multiple directions. When they tried to retreat, they found their landing zones under mortar fire. Welcome to New York, Anderson muttered, watching alien soldiers dive for cover behind abandoned cars. Hope you brought body bags. Similar scenes played out across the globe. In London, Colonel James Brown led resistance fighters through the ancient tunnel system, appearing to strike alien patrols before vanishing again. In Tokyo, Major Yuki Tanaka used the dense urban environment to turn every building into a sniper's nest. But the most shocking resistance came from the civilians themselves. In Chicago, when Vorthik soldiers tried to establish a command post in Millennium Park, they found themselves facing not just soldiers, but ordinary citizens who refused to be conquered. Secretary Janet Walsh, a grandmother of 4, threw a Molotov cocktail at an alien transport before disappearing into the crowd. These aren't soldiers, the Vorthik commander reported to his ship. These are ordinary citizens attacking us with improvised weapons. Then eliminate them, came the reply. Sir, there are thousands of them, and when we shoot one, 10 more appear. This was something completely outside Vorthik experience. In their previous conquests, civilians had hidden or fled from their soldiers. They had never encountered a population that treated invasion as a personal insult. Meanwhile, Dr. Amy Rodriguez worked feverishly in her underground laboratory beneath the Pentagon. She had been studying captured Vorthik technology for weeks, looking for weaknesses. Working with engineer Paul Jackson, she had made a breakthrough. Their computer systems all use the same basic architecture, she explained to General Davis. It's more advanced than ours, but it's standardized across their entire fleet. That means a virus designed for one ship will work on all of them. What kind of virus? One that doesn't destroy their systems, but makes them unreliable. Communications that cut out at random, weapons that occasionally misfire, shields that flicker. Nothing fatal, but enough to cause chaos during combat. General Davis nodded. How do we get it into their systems? We need someone to physically access one of their command ships, Paul Jackson said. Plant the virus directly into their network. It was a suicide mission, but Navy SEAL Commander Rick Stone volunteered immediately. I've been looking for a way to hurt these aliens personally, he said. This sounds perfect. The plan was desperate but simple. Stone and his team would infiltrate a damaged Vorthek destroyer that had crashed in the Atlantic Ocean. The ship was still partially operational, which meant its computer systems were active and connected to the fleet network. While Stone prepared for his mission, the ground war continued to escalate. The Vorthek had expected to control Earth's major cities within hours. Instead, they found themselves trapped in endless urban combat against an enemy that seemed to multiply every time they killed one dot in Los Angeles. Captain Maria Santos led a combined unit of Marines and civilian volunteers against a Vorthek stronghold in downtown. The aliens had superior weapons and armor, but the humans knew every alley and building in the city. They're predictable, Santos told her unit during a brief respite. They always take the most defensible position and try to hold it. But this isn't their world. We know where the steam tunnels lead, where the service elevators go, how to move through buildings they don't even know exist. Her unit struck from unexpected angles, using maintenance shafts and service tunnels to attack alien positions from behind. When the Vorthek tried to pursue, they found themselves lost in a maze of passages that humans had been using for decades. The psychological effect on the Vorthek was becoming apparent. Admiral Zektar monitored reports from the surface with growing confusion and anger. His forces were making progress, but at a cost that should have been impossible. Sir, we've lost 300 soldiers in the past 6 hours, his ground commander reported. The humans are using unconventional tactics. They don't fight like a military force. Then how do they fight? Like the planet itself is attacking us, sir. Every building is a fortress. Every civilian is a potential combatant. Every street is a trap. This was exactly what Captain Narration had predicted from his surveillance post. He continued monitoring Vorthek communications, sending intelligence back to Earth whenever possible. They're getting frustrated, he reported. Their officers are complaining about the cost of the invasion. Some are suggesting they should just bombard the cities from orbit. Why haven't they? Asked General Davis during a secure communication. Because they want Earth intact. A bombed-out planet isn't worth conquering. They need the infrastructure and population to make the invasion profitable. Meanwhile, Rick Stone and his SEAL team approached the crashed Vorthek destroyer in a stolen alien shuttle. The ship lay half-submerged in the Atlantic, its hull torn open, but its systems still active. Remember, we go in fast and quiet, Stone told his team. Plant the virus. Get out. If we're caught, the mission comes first. They infiltrated the ship through a breach in the hull, moving silently through corridors filled with alien technology. The few Vorthek survivors were focused on repairs, not security. Stone's team reached the computer core without being detected. Paul Jackson's virus was loaded onto a specially designed data crystal. Stone inserted it into the alien computer system and watched as it began spreading through the network. Package delivered, he whispered into his radio. Beginning extraction. But the extraction didn't go as planned. Alarms began blaring throughout the ship as the Vorthek discovered the intrusion. Stone's team fought their way back through the corridors, trading fire with alien soldiers in powered armor. 2 SEALs died getting to the shuttle, but Stone and the others made it out. As they escaped, the virus began its work throughout the Vorthek fleet. The effects were subtle but devastating. Communications between ships became unreliable. Weapon targeting systems occasionally malfunctioned. Shield generators developed random power fluctuations. Nothing that would cripple the fleet, but enough to cause confusion and doubt. More importantly, the virus allowed Earth's intelligence services to intercept Vorthek communications. What they heard changed everything Dr. Rodriguez listened to. They translated conversations with amazement. "They're panicking," she told President Martinez. "Junior officers are questioning orders. Some units are requesting reinforcements. Others are asking permission to withdraw for tactical repositioning. They're losing their nerve? More than that. They're experiencing something their empire has never faced: doubt. They came here expecting an easy victory, and instead they're fighting for every block, every building, every room." On the ground, the battle for Earth reached a new level of intensity. In Washington, D.C., Sergeant Kelly Murphy, a police officer turned resistance fighter, led civilians in defending the ruins of the Capitol building. She had been a beat cop 3 weeks ago. Now she was coordinating the defense of the nation's capital. "They want to plant their flag here," she told her mixed force of soldiers, police, and volunteers. "Over my dead body." The Vorthek assault on the Capitol was massive, involving hundreds of alien soldiers and flying gunships. They expected to overwhelm the human defenders through sheer firepower. Instead, they found themselves fighting street by street, room by room, against humans who treated surrender as a foreign concept. Every position taken cost them casualties. Every advance was met with counterattacks from unexpected directions. Sergeant Murphy found herself face to face with a Vorthek squad leader in the rotunda of the Capitol building. The alien was larger and stronger, with better armor and weapons. But Murphy had something the alien didn't understand. She was fighting for her home. "Surrender, human," the alien demanded. "You cannot win." Murphy looked around at the damaged building, at her wounded comrades, at the alien soldiers surrounding her. Then she smiled. "I've got nothing left to lose, and you've got everything. Let's see who wants it more." The fight that followed. Admiral Zigtar stood in his command chamber, staring at casualty reports that made no sense. His empire had been conquering worlds for 3 centuries, but nothing had prepared him for this. The human resistance had turned what should have been a simple occupation into the costliest campaign in Vorthek history. "Sir, we have another problem," his intelligence officer reported. "Our forces planetside are reporting unusual behavior among junior officers. Some are hesitating before engaging human positions. Others are requesting additional backup for routine operations." Zektar felt something he had never experienced in 43 conquests, doubt creeping into his own ranks. The humans weren't just fighting back. They were making his own soldiers question the war. On Earth, the battle had reached its peak intensity. In what remained of Washington, D.C., President Martinez coordinated the global defense from a bunker deep beneath the Pentagon. The surface world was in ruins, but humanity was still fighting. "Status report from all sectors," she requested. General Davis consulted his displays. "New York is still holding. Major Anderson's underground network is bleeding the aliens dry. They control the surface, but they can't move safely anywhere in the city. London is similar," added Admiral Blake. "Colonel Brown has turned the entire city into a maze. The aliens control the main roads, but the humans own everything else." Dr. Rodriguez looked up from her intelligence station. "The virus is working. Better than expected. Vorthek communications are breaking down. Some of their units are acting independently because they can't coordinate with command. But the most important report came from Captain Morrison's surveillance team, still hidden at the edge of the solar system. "President, I'm intercepting communications between the Vorthek fleet and their homeworld. The Empire is starting to question this conquest." They're asking Admiral Zektar why it's taking so long and costing so much. Martinez nodded grimly. How much longer can we hold? The answer came in an unexpected form. In the ruins of Chicago, something unprecedented was happening. A Vorthic patrol had been cornered by civilian resistance fighters led by former teacher Nancy Williams. Instead of fighting to the death as usual, the alien soldiers were trying to negotiate. "We do not wish to harm civilians," the Vorthic squad leader broadcast in broken English. "We will withdraw if you allow us safe passage." Nancy stared at the alien soldiers in amazement. In 3 weeks of fighting, no Vorthic unit had ever asked for safe passage. They either fought until they died or retreated under heavy fire. "You want to negotiate?" she asked. "We ... yes. Too many of our soldiers have died taking the city. We do not understand why you fight so hard for buildings that can be rebuilt." Nancy looked around at the ruined neighborhood where she had lived for 30 years. These aliens, really, didn't understand. "These aren't just buildings," she said. "This is our home. Would you not fight for your home?" The Vorthic soldier was quiet for a long moment. "Our home is our ships. We have not lived on a planet for many generations." That conversation, recorded and transmitted across Earth's communication networks, revealed something crucial about their enemy. The Vorthic were nomads, conquerors without a homeland. They literally could not understand why humans fought so desperately for their planet. Dr. Rodriguez realized the implications immediately. "They don't have the same psychological attachment to place that we do," she told President Martinez. "They see planets as resources to be harvested, not homes to be protected. That's why our resistance is so shocking to them." Meanwhile, Admiral Zektar was dealing with a crisis of morale among his own forces. The virus in their computer systems was causing constant minor failures, but worse was the psychological effect of the endless human resistance. "Sir, Captain Kulvash is requesting permission to withdraw his regiment for rest and refit," his ground commander reported. "Denied. We have commitments to maintain." "Sir, he's lost 60% of his troops taking 3 city blocks. His remaining soldiers are ... reluctant to engage." Zektar felt ice in his blood. In Vorthic military tradition, soldiers who refused to fight were executed, but he couldn't execute half his army. "What do you mean, reluctant?" "They're taking longer to respond to orders. Some are suggesting that perhaps negotiations might be more efficient than continued combat operations." The word negotiations hit Zektar like a physical blow. The Vorthic Empire did not negotiate with species marked for conquest. They demanded surrender or imposed it by force. The fact that his own officers were suggesting talks meant the campaign had failed in ways that went beyond simple casualties. On Earth, the tide was starting to turn in an unexpected way. Human resistance wasn't weakening under pressure. It was growing stronger. As word spread of Vorthic units asking for safe passage, more civilian groups organized their own resistance cells. In Denver, retired mechanic Bob Wilson had organized his entire neighborhood into a guerrilla unit. When Vorthic soldiers tried to establish a checkpoint at the local school, they found themselves facing armed teachers, parents, and even teenagers who refused to be occupied. "This is our kids' school," Wilson told the alien commander. "You're not setting up shop here." The Vorthic officer found himself in an impossible situation. His orders were to establish control, but doing so would mean killing dozens of civilians who were clearly non-combatants. Yet those same non-combatants were armed and blocking his mission. For the first time in his career, the Vorthic officer chose to withdraw rather than massacre civilians. His report back to command became another crack in the Empire's confidence. Morrison, still monitoring communications from space, detected something that changed everything. The Vorthic homeworld was issuing new orders to Admiral Zektar. President Martinez, he transmitted urgently, the Empire is recalling additional fleets from other sectors. They're sending reinforcements to finish the Earth campaign quickly. How many more ships? Thousands, ma'am. They're throwing everything at us to end this war before it damages their reputation further. But President Martinez smiled grimly at this news. Dr. Rodriguez, what do you make of this? The xenobiologist understood immediately. They're panicking. The Empire's entire strategy is based on quick, cheap conquests. By forcing them to commit more resources, we're proving that their system doesn't work against determined resistance. The final phase of the war began when the Vorthek reinforcements arrived. Admiral Zektar now commanded the largest fleet in his empire's history, all focused on one small planet that should have surrendered weeks ago. But instead of celebrating, Zektar was receiving reports that terrified him. Junior officers throughout his fleet were privately questioning why so many resources were being spent on one world. Some were even asking if the humans might have a point about defending their home. The crisis came to a head during the final assault on the ruins of New York City. Major Anderson's underground resistance had held the city for weeks, turning every tunnel and basement into a fortress. The Vorthek had brought their heaviest weapons to end the resistance once and for all. As the assault began, something unprecedented happened. A Vorthek company refused orders to advance into certain death against the human positions. When their commander threatened them with execution for cowardice, they replied that dying for a pointless conquest was the real cowardice. The mutiny spread through the Vorthek ranks like wildfire. Not open rebellion, but passive resistance that mirrored what they faced from humans. Soldiers took longer to respond to orders. Officers found excuses to delay attacks. Combat units developed sudden supply problems that prevented immediate engagement. Admiral Zektar faced a choice that no Vorthek commander had ever confronted. His own forces were becoming infected with the human concept of questioning orders. Sir, his chief of staff said quietly, perhaps we should consider the Empire's long-term interests. This conquest is costing us more than any previous campaign. Other species are watching. If we appear weak... Are you suggesting we withdraw? I'm suggesting that sometimes the cost of victory exceeds its value. In the ruins of Washington, D.C., President Martinez received a message that no one had expected. Admiral Zektar was requesting negotiations. He wants to talk? She asked in amazement. Not surrender terms, Dr. Rodriguez clarified, reading the translation. He's asking about mutual cessation of hostilities. The negotiations were brief and strange. The Vorthek Empire, for the first time in its history, was voluntarily ending a conquest, not because they lacked the power to continue, but because the cost had become unbearable. Admiral Zektar met with human representatives aboard a neutral ship in space. The alien commander looked tired, his yellow eyes dim with something like exhaustion. Your species fights in ways we do not understand, he told President Martinez via video link. We came expecting rational beings who would surrender when faced with superior force. We are rational, Martinez replied. It's rational to fight for your home, no matter the odds. This concept of home is difficult for us to comprehend, but we have learned that some conquests cost more than they gain. The Vorthek fleet withdrew from Earth's solar system, leaving behind a planet in ruins, but still free. More importantly, they left behind something that would echo throughout the galaxy, proof that the mighty Vorthek Empire could be forced to retreat by specie.